that is 5 foot deep, you'd get 25 square feet of soil. Well, trees need about 400 square feet of soil to thrive. So the difference between having a couple dozen square feet of soil versus hundreds of square feet of soil means that the trees will be stunted, they will be dwarfed by inadequate nutrition, too small of a root system that has these utility vaults up against it that are below ground and prevent roots from growing underneath the street, because the soil underneath the street is a sub-base that is compacted to 98% compaction, which precludes any roots from growing out under the street. So this site is, as you can see by these drawings, is going to have a very small contribution to the city's canopy cover goal of 9% canopy cover in low-rise 1 and 2 zones.
I wonder if you could pull up the diagram that David had used for his example, looking at Sandpoint Way in the diagrams. Do we have that available?
Pull it up if I will stop sharing.
You have to stop sharing. So is this the site that you visited, David? I mean, Michael?
Yes, and it's kind of deceptive because there is another lot right to the east of this one that isn't row houses, and that is the location of the exceptional tree, which is described in the arborist report for the project.
Well, I was just kind of wondering again, sort of, if you had any comments on the planting space, from these diagrams. So obviously, if a planner is looking at, well, what can we do with the site? What is reasonable to put in here? I see they show a planting box on the upper right corner of the diagram, and I'm assuming this is what is going to be planted in the space on the street side of the Sandpoint Way properties.
Yeah,
and a little bit for the shown on the treescape there on the right hand side.
one interesting thing about this project is that there's cars parked in the parking spaces. There's lights on, people are in the houses, and yet the street trees haven't been planted. And it's my understanding that an occupancy permit can't be issued until after all of the landscaping is done. So I'm thinking that there's a possibility that the Department of Construction and Inspection isn't inspecting and isn't issuing their permits in the appropriate sequence, as evidenced in the city's tree regulations research report from 2016, which the Urban Forestry Commission has commented on extensively, and which was the subject of a executive order to enforce the tree ordinance in 2017.
Could you scroll a little bit to the right there again to show the planting box? Okay. So looking at this planting box, how realistic is what they're showing as far as what the tree is able to do, and really what species of trees might are there species of trees that might work in this space, versus obviously you're not going to get a sequoia planted in there.
Well, there isn't a legend on here that describes the dimensions of this the tree planting pit. But I can tell you that the typical species would be pear trees or vine maple trees, which are considered small trees. The city has 3 different categories of trees listed in the green factor, and so those are small, medium, and large, just like small, medium, and large parking spaces. One of the parking spaces that we saw has a wheel stop that was moved out of the way by a vehicle just because it's too small. So the tree doesn't have the ability to slide pieces of concrete over when its roots want to grow wide. So the tree just causes its roots to grow in circles, and the roots never find any new nutrition by circling around the planting hole. And eventually those tree roots will act like a noose around the trunk of the tree and strangle it to death. And as the roots expand in size, they girdle the tree and cut off circulation, and that is one of the causes of the stunting of the trees.
Mr. Oxman, quick clarification question. What's the difference between a planting area and a bioplanter area? I just got a diagram there.
My idea of a bioplanter, there's another common name for it, rain garden.
Got it.
A bioplanter is basically a pit, and they have a nickname, trash pits. And the whole idea is to recharge the aquifer for the benefit of the community at large. And by cutting down trees and requiring that they be replaced with bioplanters is kind of it is not part of a consensus of landscaping sustainability. There is a faction of people that are focused on rain gardens. However, rain gardens are only indicated if the trees have been cut down, and of course there's really isn't good research on whether they actually succeed in recharging the aquifer, because the areas of concrete pavement around these bioplanters is compacted to 98% soil compaction, and there are no pore spaces, so no water can exfiltrate out of bioplanters into the surrounding soil, because they're surrounded by building foundations, streets, and walkways.
Let's move on to tier exhibit 22, which would show the Greenwood Finney Ridge before and after photos. Okay, so you'll have to scroll through some of these and let us know which ones you want to focus on. But please, give us your thoughts on what you see about the canopy cover differences between the before and after photos at a variety of these different properties in this Finney Ridge development.
Yeah, so this one shows the church prior to the demolition. You can see several trees on the edge of the property there. And then this looks like the proposed after version, and you can see that there's townhomes that are behind the row houses. Okay, now this is a different address, and in the lower left side of this red box you can see a very large tree. And then we move on down to the after version that shows no tree, and it looks like it's some type of parking area or common area where the tree used to be. So this is an example at 6417 Finney Avenue North that would be considered not a success at allowing the canopy cover goal of 9% for low rise to occur ever. So there really will never be a tree here, and so the ordinance that allows this type of construction is counter to the comprehensive plan goal of protecting the environment by being good stewards, by passing laws that allow the contribution of environmental amenities for our community.
Michael, just looking at this one property here, it looks like there's a lot of open space in front of the building on the left-hand side, and I wonder if that tree that was there might have been saved during construction, but it was chosen not to be saved for construction ease purposes. Is that possible, or you think that, or is that, could that tree have been saved perhaps?
Well, judging by the density there, I'm counting at least 8 units, so there's probably some parking there.
So you're saying that that's part of the required parking?
I don't know this. I don't know the details on this project, but it's typical for the ordinances that require parking to counter the ordinances requiring that trees be retained to the maximum extent possible, which is one of the city's ordinances.
Do you care to comment about this particular parcel here?
Well, this looks like 3 single-family dwellings prior to construction, maybe even 4, and they have extensive landscaping within the 25-foot single-family setback, and of course, all single-family dwellings in Seattle have to be 25 feet from the curb, and that allows the landscaping to buffer the front of the building so that the residents don't have vehicles and pedestrians looking in their windows, and so that the people inside the dwellings don't have to look directly out at citizens or vehicles passing in front of them. So in the lower portion, now that we've seen the after version, we can see that there are a couple of row houses, a 6-unit row house, and an 8-unit row house behind it. And then it does show some street trees, but there is no longer a 25-foot setback. So it looks like those street trees are probably really close to the buildings and will never really amount to much because they don't have any space for their branches to grow and they don't have any soil for their roots to grow into. So trees have requirements of both above ground and below ground space. And our building codes, especially this proposal here, will cause even less space in the future.